Welcome to the Daily WIP, the show where we discover everyone is becoming a media company. On the show today, we talk about the new production company model. I want to go back to, say, the early 2000s. That's when I started producing videos for other people. And back then, it was very straightforward. You had just a small number of brands who would not go through an advertising agency, and they would go direct to production. And they would go to a production company or a freelancer to achieve some content. And back then, there was a lot of companies that would just still go straight to agency, work with the agencies on strategy, what they were going to do, and the agencies would then hire the production companies and the freelancers. And so then you fast forward a little bit of time, and so now you're in a position where lots of brands are trying to figure out how to do a lot of content internally. So you have companies like Xero, who have their own internal agencies, they're building up capability. And so then it brings us to this idea of maybe what a new business model could be for those outsourced resources, the people who are producing this content for brands. Back when I began, it was very much you'd have either a fixed rate, or you'd have something where you'd say, look, I'll put together a budget and we'll see if it fits you, and then if it does, then we can make it happen. It's going to be $17,000. It's going to be $156,000, whatever it be, right? And so now we're looking at this new model where a lot of the brands have a lot of internal teams. They have internal agencies. They have strategy run internally. They're not relying so much on advertising agencies for all those things, still for some things, which I think is fantastic. But it opens them up for a new business model. A new business model for production companies and freelancers to work with brands. We've talked a bit about this idea of the content machine being built within the brand so that they can move at speed and get to a point of mass content. Freelancers and production companies should be trying to tie themselves into that business model so that they can be a trusted resource in that machine. But also to not think of yourself as the creator of content for this brand. I think people need to grow a little bit more confidence that the brand needs a range of stuff to be produced. And if you're absolutely nailing it with lo-fi MoGraph, or if you're just one of the great interviewers of creating authentic interview-based long-form content, you should absolutely have yourself as something that is highly available to a number of brands, and that you have a number of customers. But imagine it as more of a subscription type thing. Imagine of yourself as, you charge a brand maybe $100,000 a year or $12,000 a year or whatever you want to charge them for a set amount of stuff that gets produced, and that can then be tied into their content strategy. It can be tied into their calendar. It can be tied into their thread, all those things. And then they can just think of you more of a trusted part of the team to a degree, but you still have the anonymity of being, not whatever that word is, of being your own boss and doing your own things, if that's what you like doing. And I think this is what's going to be happening, is that you'll have a brand which still works with advertising agencies for like tentpole material. They'll work with their digital agency or internal for SEO and all that other stuff. They'll have their internal video making resources that's making a lot of content internally, hopefully more and more as they can become more and more authentic with their voice. And then they'll have their trusted handful of external production companies, visual effects teams, freelancers, shreditors, all those people who are absolutely a part of their content strategy going forward, that they need those people, those companies, to produce all of the stuff that ties into what they want to be at scale. Like they want to have a mass amount of content. How are they going to have a mass amount of content if they're just trying to grow one team internally that might only have certain types of skills? So if freelancers and production companies are starting to get worried that all these brands don't need them anymore, it's absolutely untrue. Of course they need you, but they only need you for what you're really good at. And I think that is a key thing. We did a webinar ages ago with, I think, maybe Demoduck, about how to become even better at being a video production company or a freelancer. And one of the key things was to focus on what you're good at and sell less but better. And so that, again, ties to, if you're absolutely the queen of lo-fi motion graphics, don't also offer shooting and editing and 3D modeling and all this other stuff that you're like average at, but you're really good at MoGraph. Not because the thing is if you try and offer everything because you're like, well, look, I'll cover the market, I do a bit of this, that, and the other. It means I'll get more customers because they all want some stuff. The market's much more competitive than that, and so they will just get the best shred editor in the area, or the one that's available down the road, but which has a show reel of only shred editing. Or they will get the best MoGraph artist to do that thing, or the one with the specific style that they want because it ties in with how they want to present themselves, or only the 3D modeling visual effects house because their show reel's just full of it, and they made that thing that they saw once. So being confident in what you have to offer, offering only what you're good at so that they know simplified what your offering is. If you go into a cafe and they're offering great coffee, but then they're also trying to sell you every type of food that's ever been made in the world, you can assume that that's not very good food, right? Just focus on coffee and a few snacks. And so you're focused on what you're good at. You've made it so you're readily available for the brand. They're trying to ramp up content. You're slotting into their content machine so that they feel like they can rely on you and trust you, and that you've got recurring revenue coming out of them, which means that you can have 5 to 50 customers that are basically just paying you constantly, and you're constantly just making really cool stuff, and it's really fun. To me, that sounds like a pretty good place to be. All right, see you tomorrow.